All right, so Tom has got that piece on there. So Tom, I'm looking at it from where I'm sitting here, and I'm looking at that gap, and I'm looking at that gap down there, and I'm going like, wow. Because I think you told me earlier that the shoe molding would be 3/4 of an inch high. So what are you going to nail that? Oh yeah, tell me again how you're going to nail that in.
I'm going to put some shim boards underneath that are the same thickness as the baseboard.
Oh, okay.
I'll just stick them underneath. I'll probably just put a nail in them or something, but I won't do it the whole thing. I'll just do,
Okay.
probably, because otherwise, if you got to do it 3 different places, that's not too bad. But if you got to do it the whole board, it makes it tough to get it, because floor is probably not level there either.
So you'll put a piece of shim underneath it to fill that gap, the same thickness as the board, and then you'll drive a nail through the shoe molding, through that shim, and then into
I'll
whatever.
nail the shim too.
Oh, you'll nail the shim too. Okay.
Nail the
okay.
shim too, and then
Okay.
I'll nail into the shim.
So there you go. There's the solution to that Tom has come up with, making use of a board that board could be the exact same height as the ones that are on the wall, or could wind up being a little bit shorter.
It actually looks like it was done for hardwood, because I mean that would be about the right. Hardwood is 3/4 of an inch thick for the most part, and between the LVP, which is maybe in the neighborhood of a little bit over a quarter, it's 5/16. So between that and the gap, it's probably about 3/4.
Okay.
And the reason I do that is because those products, not so much with the LVP, but hardwood, some of the other like engineered hardwood, they move. I mean, even though they don't expand or contract necessarily as much, they do move on the floor.
Okay.
Even the hardwood if it's been nailed down.
So there you go. He'll stick some shims under there, nail those in first, and then he will simply nail the shoe molding to those.
Right.
And it'll cover the gap, and it'll look just like the wall.
Yep.
And that, my friends, is how you work your way around an unwanted surprise. And those things happen. Which is why contractors oftentimes don't want the owners watching everything they do, because they have to react to these situations, and it's nobody's fault necessarily, and they have to do things like this, and owners wouldn't understand what's happening or why. And so go back to reading your newspaper, leave me alone. Tom probably wishes I didn't have this camera on right now. We may edit this out. You may never hear it. Or you may. All right.
All right, so now we're ready to put the trim molding on this corner, that corner, the inside corner, the inside corner on the other side. What I'll use is the top of this board and top of that board on each side as the placements for height, because I haven't finished up underneath yet. So
Right.
I haven't finished this piece because that'll take a long time to cut and make. So I guess next thing is let me grab my ladder. So I can go up there and make my marks and see how long
Alrighty.
trim pieces are.
Alrighty.
Right, no, don't guarantee that it is exact.
All right, we're out here back in the garage now. Tom is going to be cutting this corner molding, but I just thought this was a very interesting thing to point out. Now look at the way Tom is doing this. He's got the little miter box. I think that's what this is called, right?
Yep.
Right? He's going to be cutting this by hand, and he's doing it right on top of this magically powerful motorized saw. So naturally, I had to ask him why he was doing that instead of using the saw. Would you like to explain again, Tom?
Well, I've got this set at 45 degrees. It's the angle that I need for cutting the baseboard, the corners, whether it be inside or outside. And if I change it, that's fine, but chances are I'm not going to get exactly the same as it is. It's a little bit of a, it's the eye it so that it's at 45 and on that line.
So not having one of these myself, I thought that maybe there was a pin that locked it at 45 or something, and therefore it would be repeatable, go back and forth. But Tom says it doesn't actually do that, and he would prefer not to monkey up this angle. If he leaves it alone for all the rest of the boards that he's going to have to cut at that 45-degree angle, why then they'll all come out as flush as possible. But if he starts moving this back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, he won't know if he's gotten back to the same angle, and it's a lot less hassle for him to just use this little hand saw and leave the motorized saw alone. I just thought that was something worth pointing out, because I'd have probably gone right over there and flipped it back to vertical and made some cuts, and then I'd have wondered why, when I flipped it back down to a so-called 45-degree angle, that nothing was matching when I put my pieces together.
The other thing too is that, you know, it's the same reason you don't cut your pieces of wood with a chainsaw. Sometimes it's a little bit too much power.
Oh, okay.
And, you know, why you don't give your kids a sports car, the first car. You just kind of want to make sure you use the appropriate tool. This is fairly thin molding. It doesn't really need a ton of power to cut it. So it would be better job this way than it would be if I used the big saw.
A little bit of older tech. Nonetheless, there's a rationale behind it, and now I understand it. Now you do too.
I do have another, like a middle grade saw that will cut bigger wood. Again, with better precision than a big saw, but again, it's got power.
All right. Now that we know what he's up to and why he's up to it, we'll let him finish this work, and we'll catch back up to him when he's putting it up inside. All right, we are back from cutting the corner trim, and Tom's already nailed one piece up at the top, and now he's coming down. And you can really see what a visual difference this makes, adding that corner trim, covering up all the butting ends of the different shiplap pieces. Trusty nail gun at work again. You gotta have one of those. You do not want to be doing a job like this with a hammer. That's beautiful. Simple trim like that. Look at the difference it makes. All right, we'll let him finish the rest of these. Here's Tom, hard at work again. Oh, wait, no, actually, he just finished. There's all the trim. So now you can see that trim on the corners, and he's got the front piece on down here. He's going to be putting in the other two pieces a little bit later. He's got to do some coving cutting to match those to the other end of the molding on the wall, but you can see what a difference it makes. Just putting this corner trim on, I mean, it has cleaned everything up. All those exposed ends of the shiplap, there were nothing wrong with them, they were just exposed, but now you got a nice piece of trim on the front of it, and wow, this thing is really coming together. It's a shame that the Giants got walloped by the Eagles in the playoffs, because we could be watching the Super Bowl here. Oh, sorry. He's a Giants fan. Okay, but that's beautiful, Tom. This is really, wow, this is really coming along. I mean, you don't have much to, I mean, you have some things left to do, right? But
yep. Small things.
95% of this thing is done now. It's beautiful. Tom has decided that his next thing he's going to do is this little piece that goes in here. Now what he's decided to do is have the piece come up, and then he's just going to cut an angle on it instead of trying to cope and cut this whole thing to be a perfect match, and he'll blend the rest of it in with some caulk. But he is going to have to make this 45-degree cut on the front edge. And the other thing that made this whole thing difficult is that he had to take his measurements from where the top edge was going to rest and not up from the floor. And the reason for that is, as you can see here, we have this gap. So the real determinant of where things are going to finally lay is the top, or rather the underside of this piece and the underside of this piece. So he just spent a fair amount of time here drawing and cutting, or not cutting, but drawing and measuring different dimensions. And now we're going to follow him out to the garage, where we're going to watch him do all this fancy schmancy cutting out there to create this custom little piece that's going to fit in here. You're going to cut both sides.
Because I don't want to have to go back and find.
Oh, okay. Right, okay. Which means you've got to know that whole distance from the front edge 45 to the back edge 45, which I presume you just measured.
Yeah, so I'm just cutting the outside edge of the
Okay.
left-hand piece to start. Cut that again. What happened was the board slid backwards.
Oh, did it?
Yeah. So, I
Okay.
mean, it's not a whole lot, but there's definitely a difference up at this end
Okay.
by comparison. So we'll cut it. Burn through. By the way, just kind of something for this one. See these screws here? It's the two of them.
Yes.
Those are called stops. So when I set this down at 45, it stops there.
Okay.
When I set it up at 0, it stops there.
Okay.
Okay, that's just so when you're trying to figure out how to get it to go past or, get more of an angle than a 45, that's what you got to do.
So on your previous cuts, were you resting on that stop?
Yes, I was resting on the angle stop.
Okay.
That's a 45-degree stop. This is a 0-degree stop.
All right, now I'm going to pretend I'm a viewer on the outside, on the other side of the TV watching this going, now I'm confused. Then why was it necessary to use that little box to hand cut your other things? If you actually, I thought you had a variable spot you were,
No, I kind of press harder. It reads 45, and you
Yeah.
kind of get it at 45. You might be off a half a degree now and then, so.
all right, whatever, okay.
Trust me on this one.
I am, we are implicitly, and Tom we trust.
So that's 7.5, but we want it to be 7 3/4. For the most part. right, let's see how we do.
All right, let's take a look at this little piece of fine craftsmanship. All right, Tom's going to see how that thing fits in there.
Looks like it's going to be a pretty decent fit. What I gotta do is take a little bit off the bottom here for the shoe.
Interesting. So as he's fitting it in there, he realizes now that he's got to notch the bottom corner a little bit to fit around the shoe molding that's already on the wall. And then it should slide right in there. And with a little bit of caulking, no one will know the difference. Huh? You'll know the difference. The only one who will know the difference will be Tom and maybe the cameraman, who will never tell.
Don't cut your hand off.
Ooh, that doesn't look good. This is where you need to be ambidextrous. This is exciting. The suspense is building. Will it fit? Will it slide in there? Has he done it?
That could have been further out. That'll work.
That'll work?
That'll work.
Wow. So, as Tom is about to show, not everything has to be finessed to the nth degree with a little miniature beavers chewing away at the corners to mate up with other parts. There are other ways to do things. Well, I almost heard it snap in place.
There we go.
And that little gap that you're looking at is what caulk was made for.
Yep. Caulk that, we'll caulk that, we'll caulk that. Caulk
Look
down
at
there.
that.
Piece of base shoe in.
Now you see, that's
Never know the difference.
the eye of an experienced person to know that he could fit that in there, and with just a little bit of caulk, no one will ever know that those weren't all 45 or cove cut joints. So beautiful. Fantastic. Awesome.
Actually, didn't need to cut that off there. All right.
On to the other side.
We're gonna do this one. As good a result.
Kind of looks like the same problem, just in reverse. All right, let's see how he makes out on this one. So Tom has got his piece in, and now he's got his little can of putty out that we showed you earlier, and he's starting to fill some holes. And this is the stuff that once you put it in, now you see what he's using there. He's just using a little plastic spatula and his finger. And once he gets the thing covered, it's ready for paint. you actually don't have to go crazy with this. And you've got a lot of these to do. Just about every nail has got to get covered in some fashion. Now, Tom, will you paint over this, or is this
Yes.
just... Yeah, you will, okay. So he's just bringing the surface up to flat and even with this stuff. And it's quick drying and doesn't shrink and doesn't expand, so it's a pretty good concoction. And you can see the difference right away. All the nails are disappearing. He's just about to do one up here, and that'll disappear. Be ready for paint. So it's a really lazy people like me might not even bother painting it. But Tom being Tom, you know, he's gonna
Give him a look.
No special art to this. Just put a little on, use your plastic spatula to even it out, and that's it.
This will be tougher in here.
Yep, the inner corner ones that don't present you with a flat surface are a little sneakier. You put a little glob on there and then just try to scrape it like that against the surface. Yeah. Maybe a nice round finger in there would do an equally good job. Okay, here we are again, catching back up to Tom, wherever we last left off. Wow, look at this. Woo! The fireplace is in. The trim along the bottom is all done, along the vertical edges on the corners. Wow, this is... Ooh, the TV mount is also up as well. Wow, this is really looking good. I think the last time we left off, Tom was in the process of filling nail holes in, and he's done all that, and everything looks smooth. And then he probably had to repaint some of that as well, over the top of the nail fills. But wow, this is really, really looking good. Really looking good. So I think, well, let's see if Tom has wound up showing up in here. Tom, you here?
I'm here.
All right, there you are. So what's going to be going on today?
Today it's time to put some crown molding up.